This is for the woman, probably a woman over 40 or a Gen X woman who is just starting to create a business in the online space. I want to share with you 3 things that I wish I had known before I started on my path. And also before I spent $2,000 on a program that was going to teach me how to sell courses, because I was blindsided. I'm somebody who had a lot of experience creating curriculum. I've been leading teams. I've been training. I had all the skills. I had no shortage of content, basically. But what I did not have was an email list. And what you'll find, there are all these social media platforms. There's all these different ways that you can make yourself known. At some point, you start thinking like you need to be on all of them, but you do not, because you won't then be effective on any of them. But if you do not have an email list, you have no one to sell to. And yes, you could sell online, but that is a very different thing than creating an email list where you're building your own community, where you have a newsletter or where you share a lead magnet. And what I wish someone had sat down with me and shared was that you were going to need to learn at least 25 plus tools. And not that you have to use all these tools, but there's just no way around it, because when you want to create an online business, from having an email service provider to selling something to communicating to social media to supporting you with your social media, there's just a gazillion apps and online tools that will help you. And then don't even get me started on AI, because that's a whole other market that's flooded in, because a lot of those tools can do it faster. But if you have not been working in the online space, if you didn't grow up with one of these in your hand, no matter how proficient you might be in using a laptop, using a computer and all the different programs, it's not the average Gen X, I don't think, the Gen X woman that has had to intake the amount of tools you will need to learn to create your business. And I'm not saying it's not possible. I mean, I'm in that space, I'm creating it, but I definitely feel like I treaded through a lot of water, a lot of mud that I didn't need to, had I understood more what I was getting myself into, had I had the guidance, had I had the support, had I not been sold a course that I could not actually use if I didn't have an email list. And I didn't really understand that. Hindsight's 2020, and this person that I purchased it from was very skilled in their field. But I also think when I entered it, lead magnets and all these ways to get people's email addresses, it's not as easy as it was 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. People don't want to give their email address so easily. I don't. Do you? So it's, unless you have something really, really specific and you are really clear about something specific. For example, I think the people that had a very specific business in mind, for example, you're going to teach people how to train their dog. You're going to help people get organized in their homes. If you're going to help people build resumes and CVs. If you have something very specific you want to do, that makes it a lot easier, but you still have to learn all the stuff to be able to create this business. I'm sure there are simpler ways. I am a multi-passionate, undiagnosed ADHD woman, I'm sure. And if you are somebody who has always been in charge and you've been a leader and you've been a learner, it's almost unavoidable to miss all this stuff. I think there are more and more tools. I think AI definitely is changing it. Substack is changing it. Substack can simplify things. There's a lot more you can do on YouTube, and that's going to continue to expand. But I wish someone had to help me understand, what does it really mean to create an online business? It's not just about, like people often say, kind of annoys me, it's not just about having a logo. I mean, that's obvious, but people do get stuck in those places. It's not just about even making yourself known and knowing what your product is. It's like you have to reverse engineer it, because you have to use tools to make it all function, and there are a lot of them. And then if you have a product that you already know you want to sell and it's very specific, that's one thing. But if you're just trying to bring your services or you're trying to serve a certain group, unless you know exactly really what they need and what they want and you hear it from them, it's really, really difficult. So that's where it became really, really challenging for me because you have to really learn marketing. You have to learn the business of marketing. You have to learn all of the details of marketing. And you have to, unless you want to use more tools, you have to get really persistent and creative in learning what your ideal customer really wants and needs and how they talk about it. And essentially, you have to get really good at sales and marketing. The way that it's often portrayed, and I'm sure we believe it and want to believe it because it looks like a shiny object, is you can't really have a business if you don't know how to sell. You can't have a business if you don't know how to reach out. If you're somebody that does not want to engage with people, it's very, very challenging to create a business. So as a Gen X woman, I would have absolutely loved for someone to have sat me down and helped me understand the number of tools that I would need to learn and to really kind of understand that back end engineering. I also really would have liked support or had a warning on the intoxication of online social media, because if you're trying to build a reputation and make your business known and you're resourceful and there's all these tools, you're going to want to try them, but it can be overwhelming and you can crash and burn before you even get started. So understanding really maybe what might be a better tool for you, depending upon the one you enjoy the most, depending upon, like, for example, Instagram has always been more aesthetic, and it takes, in my experience, a lot longer to create posts there. And TikTok is very raw, and you don't really have to do all that stuff. They're not interested in all that stuff. So there are different nuances to each platform. Facebook is still a thriving tool, and that was the first one I had, but I still don't feel fully connected to it because every time I post, it goes nowhere. There's no engagement on my posts, and I have more followers there than I have anywhere else. Well, that's not true. I have more on TikTok. But so understanding the number of social media outputs to be able to engage and share market would have been really helpful to understand before I went down this path, because it is overwhelming. I admittedly lost so much time in Instagram for sure. So I definitely would have appreciated somebody helping me understand more about the tools and the social media. And then I mentioned this kind of already, but understanding the importance of an email list, because when you have an email list, you own it. It's your email list. It's not dependent on a social media platform, because they are email addresses that you've collected from an event or a lead magnet. But it's not as easy to get them. And if you want to create a authentic business, if you're not somebody who's going to go out and try to purchase email addresses, or if you're wanting to build something that has real meaning for you, there are a lot of hoops to jump through. But having your own email list is paramount. And if you aren't getting on a specific space, here's the last thing I'll say. This is the last thing I'll say been a real challenge for me, is that at this stage of my life, I wanted to create a business that was like an extension of me. I wanted to finally bring my work and my mission. I didn't want to just go make money online. I didn't want to sell these MRR. When I first started, the courses on how to use Instagram and how to make money on Instagram were the biggest things, and people were just selling them and selling them and selling them. And they would grow really quickly on Instagram, but they were all teaching people how to use Instagram to make money, and everybody wants to make more money. So that's really what it was. It wasn't anything that I ever wanted to do. So understanding that part, I think, is really, really important. If somebody had said to me, I mean, I'm not saying like I would have received all of this stuff, but I really would have appreciated if I had somebody that said, let me just walk you through all the components and the reality. It's possible to look at how many people are doing it, but to walk in with a real awareness versus purchasing all kinds of courses, trying to figure it out on your own, when people that are selling you courses, they're selling you something that they've mastered over time. And they make it sound like it's something that's much easier because part of how they talk about it is that they want you to learn from them so that you don't have to go through what they went through. But it's not necessarily a time shrinker because you still have to learn all the parts. You still have to take it in and process it and metabolize it and figure it all out. And I definitely think for those of us that are over 40, it's been more challenging, not in total, but I think as a rule, it's more challenging. And I think it's also really humbling, and which I was open to. I knew that was going to happen. I love learning. I didn't walk into it thinking, oh, I know what I'm doing. I knew I didn't know what I was doing with a lot of stuff. But when you've kicked ass for decades and you've done really big things in your life already with your career, it is humbling to have to be the beginner in all of these ways and how long it takes to create success. Some people have a one hit, but you're going to get lured in by so many claims because that's all clickbait, which is like people wanting to get you to watch their stuff. So they make these provocative headlines that then appeal to that part of you that wants to try to figure it out. I don't know if this landed or if it made sense, but I really feel like there's an opportunity for it to be more vocal, more transparent, more talked about more about the struggle that is real in creating a business online, especially when you're over 40 and you've already spent 10, 20 years in a career, perhaps not in the online space at all. My name is Jennifer Herrera. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for listening. Until next time.